You are listening to Midlife with Courage. This is where women in midlife come for inspiration, motivation, and sometimes a little education to help them flourish after 40. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Midlife with Courage. I am Kim Benoit, your host, and I'm so happy to have you all here. I'm also very happy to have my guest here with me today. Her name is Jenna Udenberg. Welcome to the podcast, Jenna.
Thanks for having me, Kim. I'm excited for our conversation.
I am too. Why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell the listeners what you'd like them to know about you.
Sounds good. So I am a middle-aged woman that lives in the beautiful North Shore of Minnesota on Lake Superior. I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at age 7 and in a manual wheelchair by age 8, and I permanently use a manual wheelchair. I became a music educator inspired by my 8th grade band director because she saw me as a full human being and not just a trumpet player. And we're still friends to this day, and so just a great role model. I spent 19 years in that career. During the COVID pandemic, my school district came back and said they were no longer interested in accommodating my work from home order because that's when my invisible disabilities of being very immunocompromised really was a brand new area of life for me, because usually people always just saw my wheelchair. They didn't see all the other hidden medical things that were happening. And so that was a big pivot. I didn't get to have any final programs or concerts with my students. Some of my colleagues later on came back and said, Jenna, can you make a video? Because our kids think that you passed away from COVID. Like, in their little minds and not knowing and all the things. And like, legally I can't. So it was a kind of a traumatic end to my career, which was sad. And yet in the same respect, I was a 2020 Bush Fellow during that time. And very thankful that all of that timing came together, because then I was given the terminology of accessibility educator. And that's when I dove into creating the nonprofit Above and Beyond with You. I became a published author of my memoir, Within My Spokes. And I'm a columnist for a local paper. And my column's called Local View from 4'2". And life just pivots and life changes. And really being middle-aged when all of that was happening, or starting that adventure, right? And then having your complete career identity ripped from you, and yeah, it was a lot. And then I also am a coach of a Lego robotics team called the Robo Dweebs, and we're in our 13th year of existence. And so yeah, I still get to hang out with middle school kids, early high school kids, and do dweeby things. So it's
I love that.
It's great.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So much to unpack in there, but let's go back. I like to share my guest stories, and let's just go back to your diagnosis of the juvenile arthritis. Can you maybe tell us about that, how that all came to be, and maybe a little bit about what it is if people don't really know what it is?
Yeah, for sure. So the family story is that we were out skating, and I had a fall on a city flooded park area. And I remember the next morning waking up in the bubble bath, a lovely goldenrod bubble bath for those that are around my same age. And I was a typical first grader playing around in the bubble bath. And all of a sudden my right knee floated to the top through the bubbles. And it was twice the size of my other knee. And so like any little girl that's scared, you cry for your mommy, because moms always make things better. And we immediately got me in to see my doctor, who was my labor and delivery doctor. And he said, oh, she probably has water on the knee. Use this ace bandage, take some NSAIDs, and we'll put a long needle into her knee if it doesn't go down in the next day or two. And my dad had been a volunteer ambulance driver back in the 70s before I was born. And he's like, my daughter is not an athlete. That is not water on the knee. Something doesn't feel right. We're going to get a second opinion. And at that time, we had another clinic in town, because I'm in a small rural community. So that was unheard of in the late 80s. And that doctor did some blood work and an x-ray and took one look at me and said, I'm pretty sure your daughter has juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And I can't fully diagnose you. You have to go see a rheumatologist in Duluth. And so we did that, and he took one look at me and all my labs and stuff, and he's like, yep, you more than likely have JRA, but that was the exact same time that the Lyme's disease was new on the scene, and all the symptoms are very similar. So he couldn't officially diagnose me either. He had to send me down to Rochester, Minnesota to Mayo Clinic. And I went through a whole battery of tests in a multiple day appointments. And as a little kid, it was really scary, right? Like, yes, they kept giving me stickers and lollipops, so, that part of me was okay. But I bet out of my 6 or 7 doctors I saw, I think it was only the last doctor that English was his first language. So not only did you have all these big medical jargon, but then you had all these thick accents, which was totally fine. But as a little kid, it was just like you just felt so alienated because you're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you talking about me this way?
Right.
And then unfortunately, the last doctor, like I said, he was in a 3-piece suit, and we were in this very oak-filled and leather-filled office, not like a treatment room. And again, using big words. And I remember just sitting in this cushy leather chair because I'd never sat in a leather chair before. And just watching my parents, like, processing things and, like, start crying. And I'm like, why is this dude that I can finally understand making my parents cry?
Oh, no.
And my disease was very fast-acting, which I didn't know any different, right? But within a year, I was in a wheelchair. And so we had to do a rental chair of, like, an old hospital, army green, gross, yucky thing, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't things as lightweight sports chairs or even pediatric chairs when I was a kid, right? And then I categorized my whole elementary and middle school years as if, like in school, if they were good or bad medical years. And it wasn't until I was writing my memoir, maybe a few years before that, that I was like, oh, yeah, my diagnosis was a huge pivot point to my family, which probably, like, subconsciously I was aware of, but until somebody points something out to you and then you listen to how your family talks of, yeah, great aunt so-and-so passed away, and that was like 8 years after Jenna got sick. Or so-and-so moved from this house to that house, and that was before Jenna got sick. And so you never knew, because it was just a reference point, right? Yeah. So very telling. And then, like I said, it started with my knees, but then I was like this Jenga, Tetris, Jumanji puzzle, because it's like it started in a knee and then it go to the opposing ankle, then it come up to both hips, and then it was just very rampant. And so kids get arthritis too, which was a big tagline for the Arthritis Foundation back in the day. They used to call it juvenile rheumatoid arthritis because all of the symptoms were similar to rheumatoid, at least for me. But anytime I'd go to rheumatology and be like, we're going to try this physical therapy, or we're going to try this medication, and A plus B should equal C, and we should see changes within this amount of time. And he'd throw it in my body, or do it to my body, and my body would be like, Q times the square root of R times the cube of S, and maybe you get a T. And so they'd just be like, what is going on? Okay, you're unique. And I'm like, okay, I know that's... Oh, it's same as interesting, right? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so about 8 years ago, when I was back down at Mayo for some other diagnostic work, they had said, well, now we call it juvenile idiopathic arthritis because there is no rhyme or reason of how it goes after things. I'm like, oh, well, let's go back to A plus B equals C, and Jenna's body never did that. Like, I knew that back in 1989, and now you just caught up to me in 2020. So it kind of has lots of different names, whether it's just juvenile arthritis, whether it's juvenile idiopathic, or juvenile rheumatoid. And then about 15 years ago, I think it was in an emergency room, actually, and they're like, ma'am, you're like in your 30s. We should probably take that name or that label of juvenile off.
Juvenile.
And I was like, no, because you all need to know that my body's been going through this for decades. Like, I can't just show up in an emergency room and you just see arthritis and go, oh, well, we can see your bent fingers. Yep. And then not look the rest of my body, especially if I'm not, communicative.
Right.
Like
yeah.
to go, oh, she's got a scar on her elbow. Oh, it looks like a joint replacement. Oh, she's got one on her hip and on her knees and on her ankles. Like, you need to know more of the puzzle picture before.
Right.
So I'm like,
right.
I will gladly hang on to juvenile. Thank you.
Yes. To me, it sounds like a badge of honor in a way.
Right.
I've been dealing with this since I was a kid, and here I am. And you've had a lot of surgeries.
Yeah.
I did read your book. Didn't quite finish it. I got to the Bush Fellow. Is that what it's called? We'll talk about that too. But yeah, so at such a young age, being diagnosed with something like that in a smaller town, how did the other kids, did they treat you okay, or did they accept you, or how did things change for you as a kid?
Yeah, great question. I in my memory, I don't have a ton of like bullying situations that I remember.
Hmm.
And the few that I do are more related to older kids
Mm,
wanting to pick at me and
sure.
be dumb. And really, they're just showing their own insecurities. But in the moment, you don't see that, right?
Right.
My classmates were fantastic. Like, I don't remember having any issues, or if I did, I had such a good group of friends that they just squashed it and moved
Nice.
on.
Nice.
And I also was very thankful because I've just been given that personality type that can kind of flow between things. So, like, one day I'd be having lunch with the athletes, and then the next day I'd be having lunch with the band geeks because that was my forte, right?
Yeah.
And then the next time I'd be over with, like, the people working on geometry and calculus. And then the next day I'd be like, oh, let's hang out with the skaters. So, just having a personality type that could flow between things, too, I think was very helpful.
Sure.
And then I grew up in an environment where my mom had a lot of older friends, so seeing that being role modeled out made it easier for me to hang out one-on-one with PTs and OTs and surgeons and doctors, because I was always inundated being around adults, and I had a paraprofessional assigned to me as well in the school. Like, I was fully mainstreamed, for lack of a better word than that. So I would have adult help from time to time and all of that. So I think
Yeah.
you're just given different talents and different soft skills and different role models in your life.
Yeah.
And then the younger kids, they were always funny because they always thought like I was diseased. So I have a summer memory being at like a community picnic of sorts. And I remember little kids coming up to me like, if we touch you, will we get sick? And I'm like, oh, I'm not like a bird that's injured, right? Like,
No.
you're not going to get sick and die because you touch me or play or, whatever.
Yeah.
But just all the things like in our human psychology and as we learn about things, like,
Yeah.
so I've gotten pretty good at describing what arthritis is
Sure.
based on things. I'm like, nope, you can't catch it. It's just like my immune system that helps you stay healthy. Like, you can get a cold and you're done with your cold in like a week. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, mine decides to go and eat the cartilage in my joints. And so it's busy eating and it doesn't fight off these other germs. So then therefore my cold lasts like a month or two, not a week or two.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Mm. Going back to where you said you were able to deal with more adults in your life, as a younger person, do you think that made you more able to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself, and then later other people?
Yeah, I think so. But it is also interesting when I was on the other side of the desk as a teacher and watching that kind of being played out with other paraprofessionals and other students with disabilities as well. Like, it is just different, right? Like, sometimes it's great having that adult who are around. And then I wouldn't even notice that as a teacher. Like, when there was a para in my room, I loved it because there was like another adult and you could, throw different humor in and you can do different things. And then it's like the next class would come in and they wouldn't have a para and I'd be like, okay. And it was fine, but it's just interesting human psychology of like who's in the room and who are you talking with and to and all the things. So, in some ways I can see that was a strength for me, and then other times because I've seen it played out in different scenarios, I wonder what life would have been like had I not been around adults all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting too, like, because my situation was so unique, I would always get like the higher ups of different systems, right? So like my case manager wasn't a special education teacher within my school, wasn't a special education teacher within my district, but was like the overarching head honcho of the whole region.
Wow.
So then, of course, when she would come walking in, they're like, oh, in this IEP meeting, we're going to watch our P's and Q's because we got the head honcho sitting down,
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened in college for me. Like, my advisor was the department head. Because everybody's like, oh, we don't know what to do with Jenna. So in some ways it was great because I was like, oh, I've got the top echelon, especially of women. So I think that also helped develop who I was. Because like, wow, this is how strong women carry themselves.
Yes.
This is how professionals carry themselves. This is how they treat others. This is how others treat them. But then sometimes too, on the flip side, it was like, then that also set me apart from my peers yet again. Because like I was the only one who had the regional head as their case manager. I was the only one that the department head had as their student. And so on the flip side with my peers, I think it just set me apart again and made me different again. And so I don't know that that always was great either. And then sometimes, you know, of course, when it became like, ooh, Jenna needs this class at this time, I can throw out that doctor's name of I have the department head as my advisor. I'll go talk to her.
Love it.
You know, but then in other spaces it was like, why this feels awkward, or why do you feel like now you have to take it to the next level, right? That was always the thing, like, oh, this should be something we just go talk to a secretary about. And then the professors would be like, oh no, we have to go talk to Dr. So-and-so because they're your department head, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but you wouldn't have done that to my peer who had a different professor as their person. So
Sure.
yeah, it's
an interesting dynamic.
Absolutely.
For sure. I love that you gravitated to music. I am the mother of two band geeks myself.
Nice.
And we thoroughly enjoyed the band experience in high school. I was one of the chaperones, and so I was always involved in that. But
Nice.
why
You were a
music?
band mom.
Band mom, yeah. And I was a nurse at the time too, so they like taking, you know, like, oh, could you chaperone this field trip? Sure.
Because, you know, we're all a little clumsy in the band world, too.
Yeah, well, you know.
Bring lots of Band-Aids.
Yep. So what drew you to band and music?
Well, both my older sisters were band people. I wouldn't necessarily call them band geeks because they didn't embrace it as much as I did. One played cornet, which is just a smaller, different version of a trumpet. And then my other sister played the flute, and I was like, that is just too girly, it's too delicate, it's too many fast flying fingers, no thanks. So I used my sister's cornet for my first year or so, and our elementary band teacher, he was a very well-known trumpet player. And he was so funny because, and probably not funny at the time, but funny when I think back about it. In 6th grade is when we could start, and I started having my right elbow fusing naturally by my disease. And so I just started accommodating. So I saw saxophones with their neck strap, and I was like, oh, maybe if I take this purple sparkly shoelace and wrap it around my trumpet, and like maybe that would help some of the weight. It didn't, but you know, I thought I'd try it.
The wheels were turning.
Right. I was accommodating. My OTs would have loved the fact that I was already figuring life out.
Yeah.
And I became a left-handed trumpet player. And I will always remember his face looking at me one day, and he said, I'm sorry, but there is no such thing as a left-handed trumpet player. Are you sure you don't want to play something else? And he retired a year later, which I was like not sad about, because then the following year, then I got my amazing teacher who's my friend now, and that was just kind of it. And for me, you know, it was an equal playing field. It was, yes, Jenna's in a wheelchair. Yes, Jenna has to do horrific things of using a stair tracker to get down to the band room and have her peers lift her up to be on the risers because the lead trumpet player needs to be in the lead trumpet player position. So yeah, there's a lot of horrific things, and the school district at that time didn't have accessible buses, so we were contracting with one of the local transit companies. Well, then it was like, oh, Jenna's in band, she's going to honor band, she's going to honor jazz, she's going to state competition. Oh, well, we don't have an extra bus to take Jenna. Now that we finally have one, we have to keep it here in case there's an emergency. So then my 8th grade band director, she's like, all right, reimburse me for my mileage, give me a sub, and I will take Jenna to all the different places. And so, yes, that would be completely unheard of.
I was going to say, yeah, there's a little liability there.
Correct. And so, yeah, we just made it work. And like then my other high school director, my parents just gave him permission, and he would drive me in my parents' van, and he just learned how to strap me down. And again, all the things that would not happen today, but they believed in me, and they wanted me to be a part of their program, and they saw the leadership strengths that I had, not only musically, but as a human being. And they really became like my music parents.
For my own girls, and from what I've seen too with even myself, but with music, just it does foster leadership among those who are true leaders. You know, just working as a group together, you see who is that leader.
And
So,
then also how to follow too, right? Like follow your peers
yeah,
that are helping lead, and
yeah,
musically versus verbally is so different as well. It's
right, right.
there's a je ne sais quoi, and I don't know what in the music world that just
Yeah.
happens, especially when you're playing at a higher level too, right? Like when
Mm-hmm.
you're past the hot cross
Yes.
bun stage.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, PTSD from that. No.
Right.
That's amazing. I'm sure, and you said it was quite a blow when you weren't able to teach music after COVID hit. It was devastating to so many people in so many ways, but that must have been just awful for you.
And the hardest part was just the timing of it, right? It was like a
Yeah.
week before we were heading back to the classroom. I had already bought my like little security bubble, was figuring out how I was going to teach as teacher in the bubble.
Hmm.
And I came down to like, so where am I going to eat? Because I'm not going to eat in my classroom that just
Oh,
had hundreds of kids singing in it in the past four
sure.
hours. But I'm also not going to go and unmask in the lounge where everybody's eating and speaking and laughing and.
Yeah.
And then bathrooms were always an issue because, accessible from the other side of things. We're like, oh, well, you can use the students' bathrooms. Like, again, what did we just live through? And, so again, it's just all about the priorities of things and seeing the world and needs from multiple vantage points instead of
Yeah.
just, you think of a school and you just think of students. You don't think of teachers and the adult supporters and the principals and
Right. Right. Yeah.
all of us can be disabled at any moment. So
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that is true. I'm just going through my notes that I wanted to talk about. You've received a couple of awards at least. I know there's probably more than two. Miller Dwan Foundation Journey Award.
mhm.
And you wrote about that in the book, and you were talking about you have a type A personality and you get things done. And one of the things I wrote in quotes was you make up for what I lack due to my disability. And you were talking about it as how you were treated. You weren't treated so wonderfully. And
Right.
so to have that feeling of having to make up for what is your disability, but then you get this award, what kind of like oh, I'm going to lose the word here, but just
Like an oxymoron.
yeah, kind of. Or getting that award was a validation that, not a validation. I'll think of it after we're done recording, but, but
3 in
can
the
you,
morning. We'll call each other.
yeah, yeah. Can you just talk about getting an award for something? How does that affect you? Like, is it surprising or are you thinking, yeah, I deserve that or both? I mean, you definitely deserve any awards you get, but
We'll be back after a quick break.
ladies, I am so excited about my new venture in this podcast. I'm calling it Midlife with Courage Unfiltered. You are going to get me, Kim Benoit, once or twice a month. I'm going to be getting real with you about the conversations that I have with my guests. And I'm going a little bit deeper. I'm going to bring my own personal experiences into it. I'm going to share what I've got going on in the hopes that you will share right back with me. This is not going to be me just talking in front of the microphone. I want your input, I want your participation. If you go to my show notes at the end of this episode, you'll see a support the show. That is where you can subscribe to Midlife with Courage Unfiltered. For only $5 a month, you're going to get this extra bonus content once, twice a month, and we're going to talk about what's really happening in midlife. I'm going to share my experiences. I'm going to get real. I'll probably get a little vulnerable. I'll be sharing things I don't normally share. So please subscribe so that you can get in on the founding members of this new Midlife with Courage Unfiltered. I'll see you there. You kind of know what I'm asking?
Yeah. And in that space, it caught me from left field, right? Because one of my PTs and my OT had nominated me for it. And at that time, I was so entrenched in dealing with my own medical stuff, in trying to continue my career. Like, I wasn't an advocacy hat, right? Like, my life just ebbs and flows so often. And then, depending on what part of my mountain or pit that I'm in, is, where I feel like I can make an impact for others too. And I think that's why it made it so much more special and important and really validating, because I wasn't intentionally doing that work. But they saw that in me of like, oh, seriously, the scheduling thing happened. And like, okay, so this really sucks for me. And I can't imagine how much more it would suck for somebody who is blind or somebody who needs interpreters or somebody who needs ... And so that's just innately in me. And then especially as a public school educator, as somebody who started an adaptive music program, as somebody who saw all of my students as my students, I think that just made an impression on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was interesting when the award ceremony happened. I was like, who should I invite? And of course, your biological family, your chosen and spiritual family. Mm-hmm. Or another podcast host last week was like, hey, we call it the framily, when your friends become family. And I'm like, I like that.
I love that. Yes. Framily.
Framily. And I even invited some of my colleagues, and I invited my previous case manager and my superintendent, and all these people just showed up in full force. And the most special one was my first grade teacher, who I hadn't seen since I was in first grade, came. Aww. And I was like, is that Miss Peterson? That totally looks like her. She doesn't look a day older than when I had her in first grade. And sure enough, she came up in her typical striding pattern with her same kind of high heels and her same perfume, and gave me a card and a gift. And I saw this in the newspaper. Once you're my student, you're always my student. And I was like, oh, I picked that up from you, because I tell my dweebs that all the time. Like, once a robo-dweeb, always a robo-dweeb. Like, you know, all the things. So I was like, it was really a full circle, really cool moment. And that was really the pivot point in my whole journey within the last, I can't even do math, well, I guess the last decade, because I was in 2016. Okay. Time flies. But that led to me believing in myself to apply to becoming a Blandon community leadership program cohort member. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited because I was like, oh, I'm chosen as an alternate. This means like I'm cool enough that you want me. But it's also cool enough that I don't have to go and do a full week retreat and monthly check-ins and do all this growth stuff, right? Ooh, this is cool. I'm just an alternate. And then it was like a couple weeks before the event, they're like, just kidding, we found more funding. So now all 26 of you get to come. And it was like, now I have to go, and I have to deal with all the access issues, and I have to plan ahead, and I have to do all the things. And it was the best thing ever, becoming a Blandon family, which then led to my confidence of applying for a Bush Fellowship and getting some great mentors throughout that process. And just amazing things.
And I love that you brought up confidence, because that's something I talk about a lot with, especially women in midlife. We need to find it again. Sometimes we lose it, and then we need to find it again. You've talked about how you and other people with disabilities have a constant reminder of their barriers and the things that they can't do. And in your advocacy work, you want to let them know that you tell me, I'm not going to tell you what you do. Tell me, why do you do this advocacy work?
Right. Well, I mean, obviously it's something I deal with every single day, and I've had 38 years of experience, hands-on, wheels on the ground type of stuff. I always say my parents taught me that when you enter a space, you leave it better than you found it, right? You clean up the breadcrumbs that somebody left on the table, or you sweep the floor, or you wipe down the table and the chairs, right? Yeah. And I would say in my last 3 years of doing this work full-time voluntarily, I want to leave people in better places than I find them, and I hope that they leave me in a better place than where they found me. And so I think it's really that interdependence. It's really fighting the scripts, right? Disability is not a bad word. I'm a proud disabled woman, and not proud in the negative, gross, egotistical sense, but in the, I don't belong under your table anymore. I don't need to be grateful for the scraps in which you happen to toss down, thinking that other people are above other people. And that's not how we should act. That's not how we should live life. And after you've been that underdog for so long, after you've been that talked about but not talked with person, when you've seen society go from doing to you to doing for you, and now it's no, we need to do with you, because we need to restore dignity, and we need to restore agency and autonomy. And again, right, I'm sitting here as a veteran who's been in a chair for 38 years, right? somebody that's new into my community and culture, whether it's years, months, days, moments, right? Anybody can enter disability community and culture at any time for a whole variety of reasons. And it's the coolest, most diverse, most beautiful minority group to be a part of. And some of us enter it kicking and screaming. Some of us enter it with pessimism and bitterness and hurt, and I don't fault them in any of those. But I'm so excited that for me and many of the folks that I rub shoulders, wheels with, whatever the right terminology would be, right? Like, we've been able to go through the grief cycle, and sometimes we go through it many times. But life is beautiful, and life is important, no matter what way you traverse through it. And that's what I love to do. I love to flip the scripts. That educator in me, right? Like, when I went through that pivot, I was like, I can't be a teacher anymore. It's like, really? No. Just because that part of my career ended doesn't mean all of those skill sets, all of those experiences aren't shaping all of the work that I get to do today. And I think that's what makes my nonprofit board so unique, is the first 3 boards, every single board member had some connection to education. And so that's what so set us apart when people would talk with us, like, wait, you do consulting and you do assessments and you do training and you do, like, wait, what? And it's not just like a standalone, like, just come in for an hour, we pay you, life is good, see you later, sayonara. It's like, oh no, the with you means like we're building authentic and organic relationships. Like, we can't continue to silo people who are different, people with disabilities, and all the things, because, like, it's not doing us any good. And disability is woven through all of our society and all of our community and all of our events. So let's acknowledge it. Let's stop pretending it's an elephant in the room that we just keep putting under the rug, or we just keep putting the dust on, or whatever. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, just talk about it. We need to do that in so many areas of our lives.
Right.
So tell us more about your nonprofit. Who do you work with specifically when you're talking about you're working with someone?
Oh, yeah. Really, it's very diverse, right? Like, we worked with different art creating and museum type spaces. The state of Minnesota, with the Department of Natural Resources, serve on different commissions throughout the state and locally, work with city governments, work with small businesses that want to do better. And then also working with larger foundations as well. Hey, we know we're doing great equity work here in these different demographics, but we never thought about how disability runs through all of those demographics, and maybe how we're not meeting the different needs, or we're not truly representing the communities or the states in which we represent. So we go from little conversations or startups to big entities that are just trying to do the next right thing. And so that's really cool, because it's such a variety of excitement, a variety of understanding disability culture, and just learning something new every single day. And that's what I love. And then also, because primarily we're more of a mobility disability organization, and so we really want to be a conduit to other facets of disability, but we will never say that we understand, because none of us have the lived experience of that. And I think that's also what makes us different, because several years before Above and Beyond With You started, I had a local group adding an addition to their building and all the things, and I was a member of it and all the things, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to hire this company over here, and I'm like, okay, but I'm right here for free, and I use your space every week multiple times. Like, what? I don't understand the disconnect. And so, well, that's cool, you're hiring a disability consultant, sweet. And then I found out that not a single person on their payroll is disabled. And so I was like, oh, so you're just good intentioned, non-disabled people reading the ADA guidelines, making lots of money, advocating, and doing all the things. And I was like, okay, that's great, but it feels a little ishy as somebody who's in this space, who's saying nothing for us without us. And if you truly knew the culture and climate in which you're inserting yourself into, this feels really ishy. And really, you don't see the problems with this. And then the flip side, like, oh, so we're good enough to use our stories and really tokenize us, but we're not good enough for you to hire us when this is our lived experience. So there's just lots of like scripts, and you know what I mean? Like we all have those blind spots. We all have our unconscious bias and our ignorances, and but usually when people are like, hey, let me hold up a mirror for you. Hopefully you see that little glimmer of like, oh yeah, that's ishy. Sorry. Let's do something to change that. But
people need that. Yeah. 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 Oh yeah. And then sometimes you do it and then they're like, what? I don't get it. Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to wheel over here. I'm going to do bad things. I just need to remove myself. Because now jail cells are wheelchair accessible. So.
Oh, dang it.
That was always my joke. Like, what's going to happen? They're going to put a beeper on my leg and make me stay home? Okay. That was always my joke. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
Gotcha.
Right.
Jenna, the audience listening is women in midlife. How has your outlook or what you do or anything changed since you've grown into this midlife journey?
So it's funny. I remember being a younger teacher and a fellow teacher hit her 40s. And she's like, this is freeing. I can say whatever I want because I've got bigger holes in my filter, so watch out. And I was like, ooh, you think you're all that in a bucket of fish. I'm a little afraid of you. To come out and say that in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
And then I so have to laugh because I think of that teacher almost on the daily. Oh, yeah, my filter holes are much larger now. Right. Like, you're not kidding. I don't know what happens in our brain or what happens in our hormones or lack thereof.
Yeah.
But, so in that funny story, but not really funny, is like there is a lot of power in obviously everyone's words, but especially for middle-aged women. And so as we cut through the junk and the stupid stuff that we don't always want to call out, but then we get to the point where we're like, what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
So we're going to call stuff out, right? We're going to stand up to things. I think the biggest thing that I try to do is when I've had enough, I need to say it out, right? Like earlier this week, I was in a trusted leadership space and somebody poked the bear about accessibility locally. And with the snow and the blizzard and all of the stuff that becomes extra barriers in life, I just lost my junk, right? Like I was bawling in the camera of Zoom and I was just like, this is what stinks. And why doesn't anybody think through? Why don't you think through as a fellow leader of, hey, Jenna needs to get to this space tonight. Maybe I should be an ally. Maybe I should be a friend. And maybe I should grab a shovel and take care of it. And then also call Jenna to be like, hey, not looking for kudos. I'm just letting you know that I came early and I made sure that you can get in. And I'm saving this parking spot to make sure that you can safely get into an event that we all should be able to get into. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Right.
So then I'm like, so is my advocacy really working? So sometimes when we come into middle life, it's like we just get mad as heck and we don't take it anymore. And like we just call things out. We call things what they are. But I try to make sure that I'm calling people in. And sometimes when a minority person calls someone in, a majority person thinks it doesn't feel so great, right? And I've even had that conversation with trusted older family members. Wow, you really spoke pretty brazenly to that. And then it was like months or a year later, that family member came back and went, oh, you deal with that crap every single day. So when you finally had enough, and you are professional about it, I'm not rude or crude or whatever, but It's like you just find that one little weird story and you pull away the veil and you pull away the nuances to just lay it down. And then it's like you let the cookie crumble where it's going to crumble, because that's the only way they're going to learn, until there's something that's hard and something that's everyday life and something that some non-disabled person will go, I never even thought about that. I remember meeting at a state park with one of my Bush mentors when I was working on my application. And I'm like, yeah, I love coming here because they've got this version of accessibility for a restroom and that version of accessibility for a restroom. And there's gender specific and then there's unisex and are all gender and all the things. And she's, oh my gosh, I never thought about all that. And she's like, Jenna, every toilet in this building could explode and I could still figure out a way to use the bathroom. And I'm like, yep, you're right. Every toilet could explode and you would be able to figure out how to meet your needs. I, on the other hand, not so much.
Mm.
So, yeah, let's all fight for just basic dignity, human rights. And it doesn't have anything to do with needing to overshare what someone's needs are in the restroom. We should just be meeting basic dignity.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. As you were talking about all that, I was thinking as midlife women, we kind of gravitate towards each other in a community because we draw strength from each other. And I'm thinking that we need to be more aware of women with disabilities and including them in that community. Just that awareness. And sometimes we do need to be hit over the head with something before we realize, oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and in that I would say the biggest thing is promoting the events or the things or the gatherings and giving the pictures or videos and then letting the disabled person choose if that is a safe and accessible space for them. Like, even for me, like, I can't go and be like, hey, this bathroom works for me, it should work for everyone, because that's ableism coming from a disabled mouth, not okay, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then also making sure that you don't put undue extra stress on those people, right? Like in my example of the snow removal from the meeting this week, like had somebody done that, but then be like, oh, I did this all for Jenna and Jenna didn't show. And it's no, don't put that pressure on either. Like we should be making events accessible for everyone. And, snow removal helps everyone, not just Jenna. Because Jenna's not the only one in a chair or with a mobility disability or all the things. But that was always my thing, especially growing up in the good old boys network and all of that, right? Like, we built it and she didn't come. Well, did you tell me about it? Well, okay. And then they'd tell me about it the next time. And it's like, we built it and you didn't come and we spent all this extra money to rent this ramp and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I got sick that day. So now you're going to hold me accountable and make me feel like junk and ashamed. Because I'm just like everybody else and happen to get sick. But, Joe Blow leader over here got a cold and couldn't come either, but you're not giving them crap. Like,
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword. My goodness. So, Jenna, what would you like the women listening out there to know? How could they help with disabled advocacy? What can they do?
Yeah, that's great. The biggest thing is just, again, leave places and spaces better than how you found them, right? Like, I just spoke at a women's expo a few months ago, and I was like, seriously? Like, when you're in a restroom and the toilet paper has all that horrible plastic covering, just pull out the toilet paper so the next person who might have hands like mine can more easily get it. Or my other example for in bathrooms are kind of my thing, right? Is like, just wipe off the edge of the sinks. Because for me, I'm tired of getting shirts and armpits just doused in wetness because people can't clean up after themselves or after others.
Yeah.
There's just so many little things, right? And then also just making sure that when you are engaging with people with disabilities or all difference, right? Like that we're trying to increase the dignity. And so if you ask if, you can help somebody with something and they say no, then leave it at that because they know their body best and they can sense, like, are you wanting to give help out of pity? I don't want anything to do with that. If you're asking, hey, can I hold the door for you? Absolutely. And then if you watch that same person go, hey, can I hold the door for you? And it's a non-disabled person, that's even more cool, right? Because you're treating everybody the same and it doesn't have that, is that a pity thing? Is that a whatever?
Yeah. It's just their normal, what they do for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's awesome. And then also if they say no, hey, can I give you a push? And if I say no, there's probably a lot of different reasons for safety or whatever that it's like, nope, I got it, thanks. But then people will just come up and keep pushing. And, oh no, you just broke my thumb off because my thumb wraps around my push bar, right?
Yeah.
So I think just taking people at their word. And then obviously, especially you as a nurse, right? You'd be like, oh, I feel like you're going to fall out of your, like if you do have that gut feeling of like, they said no and I'm going to respect that. but I'm just going to hang out for a couple of minutes to make sure they got in their car okay, and I don't have to call 911 or whatever, right? Like, have that compassion, but don't enforce yourself in those spaces.
That would be my response, would be, okay. And then I'd be like watching from afar just to make sure. Yeah.
That mama bear
exactly.
of like, are you really okay?
Are you
awesome.
Sure? Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So wonderful. So tell us where we can find more information about your nonprofit.
Yeah, so Above and Beyond with You, capital U, because my little kids couldn't call me Miss Udenberg, because most people mispronounce my name, and I do too. So they changed my name to Miss U. So aboveandbeyondwithyou.org is our website.
Okay.
And you can find us on socials. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And on our website, you can also find the link to purchase the memoir, and all proceeds of the book sales go towards the work of Above and Beyond with You. Mm-hmm. And then you can also see all the different services and engage with us. And we just love connecting. Sometimes folks even reach out like, hey, we're heading to Minnesota. What would you recommend? Or, hey, we're coming to the North Shore, kind of lodging and that kind of stuff. So we just offer all different services and help people out however we can. So
wonderful. This has been a lovely conversation, and I have to say I've never heard anyone say that they're all that in a bucket of fish. But it's so Minnesotan and Wisconsin.
Right.
As the wife of a fisherman, I am going to use that.
You're all that in a bucket of fish, honey.
All that in a bucket of fish. I just love that. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Jenna, thank you so much. Is there any one last little nugget of information you want to share with the listeners before we say goodbye?
I would say just keep being you. Keep being self-reflective. Keep wanting to be a better version of yourself. And have grace for yourself. Have as much grace for yourself as you have for others. Because, like you said earlier, us women need each other. Mm-hmm. And so when we want to find ourselves isolating and doing all the things, push through and find those trusted women, not only that are going through the current, but find those older women that have gone before. Because so often the generation above us is just sitting there waiting for the generation below to reach out. And we need to do more of that because we're all in it together.
So true. Jenna, thank you so much. I hope that we will get to talk to you again sometime.
That would be fabulous. Thanks so much, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Midlife with Courage. If you liked what you heard, I would love it if you would leave a review. Or even better, send a link of this episode to a friend. Until next time, take care of your beautiful self.